Hey there, YouTube. Welcome to Big Mike Beard Wisdom. So, it's June 16th, and we've got a little bit of melons going. So, this is the Sweet Passion. You can see we did just have the one going. This Sweet Passion, we've got two of them going. So, that one was probably the first one out of all the melon plants to pop up. Here's the Kajari melon. I've got one there, and it looks like the other one's starting to go right there. And then both of these kind of popped up in the last couple days. So super happy that these actually wind up like germinating in like a week, more or less. So now it's going to be all about placement. And it's one of those things where today being June 16th means that we're really close to June 20th. 21st, 22nd-ish, which is normally when you've got your summer solstice. So that's where the sun, more or less hits its peak. It's the longest day, but also, like as far as the sun's travel, it's the last time that it's going to be moving in that specific spot, and it's going to be going back towards like the winter shorter days and the winter travel. So when it comes to placement, I'm not going to have them right here. So right here, you've got the sun there in the east. And with the maple tree there and the other tree, kind of shades this a pretty good amount. Then here in the west, you've got more trees. So that's like the neighbor's pine tree and stuff like that, which gives a lot of shade. And with how the sun works right now, the arc will be over here and then kind of comes down this way in like the summer phase. As we start heading more towards winter, it'll slowly go this way more. So this tree here will start to shade up and over the shed in this area. Likewise, in this easterly direction, the shade that we get from the tree right there, that's going to recede this way because the sun again will stop being so far that way and start working that way. And then going deeper in the yard, you can see here to the south, we've got a fair amount of trees. The big one being the black walnut over there, that's probably the most difficult to work around. And then over here by the shed, this north face catches a fair amount of sunlight in the morning because of how, again, the sun's arc and stuff like that, it starts over here. So we'll get sunlight hitting the shed in the morning, whereas come like the autumnal equinox and stuff like that, it'll always have about this much shade. So I set a stick out about that far to kind of gauge how far I think it might be safe to kind of set up a trestle, because the Kajari melons are about 60 days until they're going to be ready, but the Sweet Passion Cantaloupes, they're going to be 90 days. So it's going to be one of those situations where I'm not planning for right now, I'm planning for, say, September. So I need to make sure that I'm out enough that I continue to get plenty of sun. Now, having said that, I did kind of kick this stick about another extra foot in. Because right now, it's about 10 o'clock in the morning. You can see there's lots of space between the stick here and the shadow. And it would have gotten a fair amount of light here, but like probably about there was shaded this morning at about 8 in the morning off of this tree. So it's just one of those things where the sunlight moves a lot, and if you've got something that like a melon that's going to require a lot of light for a long period of time, you're definitely going to want to try and make sure you put it in a good spot. Now this tree, if we look directly west, you can see kind of encroaches. So as the sun makes its travel, right now these here come up over there. So I'm willing to bet that about 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night, that's going to be over here pretty close to where that stick is. So the stick's going to be the farthest south point. Plus, we're really far away from like the strawberries and the pine berries. So, I'm kind of hoping if there's anything that's bugging those, it doesn't bring those pests over here. Likewise, if anything's bugging the melons over here, it's not moving over there. I just wish I had a water source that was closer. So I'll probably wind up setting up a dual spigot kind of thing. That way I've got a quick hose ran from the house to maybe say that raised garden bed, and then a hose there to spray these down, or you know, the potatoes and stuff like that that are growing on the deck, and then another hose that I can roll up and bring out to here to the melons. And then we got a ton of rain last night, so almost 3 inches of rain last night. And lawn wise, where I'm putting it is relatively a high spot ish, not a super high spot, because over here is kind of a low spot. This will be kind of wet and funky in here, and then over here you can see there's standing water. So it's just one of those things where for the moment this will be a good semi-dry spot for it. And I think lawn wise probably the best spot I can stick it. And then, you know, if we wind up killing the grass and stuff like that over here, you know, we can do something over here to make it seem like it was intentional. And then the other option would be to say put it right in front of here, which, you know, would be okay, but right now this area here doesn't actually clear out, you know, fully until probably about 11 o'clock. And then come about 6 or 7, you're catching the shed and the trees shading over here. So maximum amount of light wise, you know, it's only going to get about 8 hours maybe if I put it right here, whereas over there we're talking much more like 12, maybe 14 hours. And the great thing about growing these in grow bags, or let's say pots or something like that, is that at the moment we're mobile. So it hasn't started growing out really big, so I can put it where I want to put it for the moment, at least until it starts vining out and then, you know, becoming attached to something like, say, cattle panel trellis. And then, yeah, good luck moving it once it's attached to that. So first things first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Cobalt 80 volt max lawnmower that I have, set it down to its lowest setting, and I'm going to come in through here, just kind of clear out a decent sized square, and then I'm going to use some cardboard and some landscaping fabric to kind of set up a warmer appearing spot for these to grow, because up here in Minnesota it can get pretty hot, but you know, it sounds like cantaloupes really like heat, so let's see what we can do. And then just to kind of test the heat change and stuff like that, let's take a quick peek. So the wood on the side of the box is 86.4 degrees. Inside we got 94.6. The plants are 90, and these are the pine berries. Grass in general, about 90 degrees. Grass in the shade, ooh, the shade is nice, 77 degrees. And then with 2 cardboard boxes and 1 single layer of like the landscaping fabric, after about, I would say about 15 minutes out here in the sun, whoa, that was hotter than I was expecting. So grass, and then slide on over. So yeah, that definitely creates a lot more heat right there. So it'll be interesting to see how this winds up going with giving the melons exactly what they're looking for. Let's go back over the middle area, see if that's extra hot, because it's double. No, about the same. Back over here. Yeah, maybe it is a little extra hot in that center part. Awesome. So, yeah, that'll definitely generate some extra heat. Or at least being up here in Minnesota, you know, helps extend the growing season a little bit. How about some fresh, dark, kind of damp mulch? About 92. And then these guys over here by themselves, about 91. What about the side of the bag? About 106. And all that's on a, you know, 86-degree day at 76% humidity, which apparently feels like 98. All right, so I hammered in those stakes after I shortened them a little bit because 8 feet's pretty tall to be trying to swing with a hammer. But I got these all in. They're 50 inches apart here and here, and then I went 5 feet across. So I think that'll give me about a 6 foot or so arch up here. And then for the 16-foot cattle panel, it's 16 feet by 50 inches. And then basically I counted in 6 those, hooked a ratchet strap, hooked another ratchet strap, well, the other end of it, and then just pulled it tight. So it's really bendy and really easy to do that with. And then just ratchet it a little bit, that way it holds it in place. This should allow me to stand it up in place and kind of start to align it by myself. So with as tight as I have that, that's probably like a 4 feet one, and it's up there a ways. So I'm 6 feet tall, and you can kind of see, here I am, there it is. So just kind of one of those things. If you're looking at a 4 foot one, the 4 foot one's probably going to be higher up. The 5 feet should kind of slope it down a little bit more. All right, so that's just kind of resting against the posts there. I'm gonna go ahead and knock these in a little bit farther. That way they're not leaning quite so crazy. So that way it helped add a little bit of stability. And then I'll go ahead and start running zip ties up the sides of them. Well, up the sides of the cattle panel. But you can get an idea, you know, it dipped down a little bit, not a whole lot. So again, here's me, there's the cattle panel. So 5 feet spacing, really not that bad. Really easy to walk through for me, being 6 feet tall. Now, granted, when you get near the edges and stuff like that, that'll be a little different because, you know, I could probably walk comfortably through the center, and it'll be interesting to see once it starts filling up with foliage and stuff, how that winds up doing. But the plan is to have the grow bags on the inside to insulate it from our dogs' leashes and stuff like that from catching. So that'll help protect the plants. And the last thing that I did was get the zip ties in place. So I've got the one there near the bottom, I've got one there in about the middle, and I've got 2 near the top. And then, as you can see from the arch, it's not quite perfect, but you can kind of sit there and bend it around a little bit to see if you can try and make it a little bit better. So not too bad. And then I've got the Kajari melons up front, because I figure as the sun starts to set and move more towards like the south, it'll start casting shadow this way. So that gives the Kajaris the short time frame, seeing as they're only about 60-day ones. And then the Sweet Passions, being 90-day ones, they'll have hopefully a little bit longer time in the sun. And then here we are at about 4:30 in the afternoon. You can kind of see, you get a little bit of the shadow come from the black walnut over there, and a little bit more is approaching over here. So it should get really good sunlight from about 7 in the morning to about 4:30 at night. So fair amount of light. And then as it gets a little bit later in the year, we'll get a little bit more shadow kind of invading it from this side. So definitely going to be interested to see how this winds up going, and if I maybe should have put this 2 feet back. But this will be a good experiment. And something else I kind of learned right off the bat too is you can kind of see the bend this has down here. So if you're thinking about doing cattle panels, I would definitely do what a lot of people do and put like a metal support in that center, because then the outers will kind of like bend up and more or less straighten out, as opposed to having this big old curve here. Then of course it wouldn't be one of my videos unless I was doing some sort of weird experiment. So cutting those boards down, I got the 3 more or less like 1.5 by 1.5 pieces of wood, leaving this more or less 3/4 by 1.5. And I wanted to see if it was sturdy enough to hold it, and seems to be at this point. Now granted, once it rains, that wood gets wet, gets soft, you know, it may wind up doing some funny stuff, but that's the experiment I want to see, just how it goes. So if you're thinking about doing like a cattle panel trellis, they're really not that tough to do, pretty simple. And in this situation, it's really interesting how kind of setting this little grow area up kind of like changed the environment it was in, because now it's on a really hot kind of pad that's going to stay warm and hopefully keep this happy. That way they really take off and go in this short growing period that we have up here in Minnesota. But I think we're set up pretty good for this year. It'll be interesting to see how it ends up going. So if you guys want to find out how this one's doing, definitely stay tuned. Feel free to like, subscribe, and I'll check you guys next time. Whew, it's hot. Time to go inside and get something to drink.